Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today, we begin our video with a story about a young Brazilian lawyer and his annoying client. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. So here we go. It was going to take me 15 minutes, maybe less. So I'm from Brazil, I'm studying law here, and I have almost 3 years of internship. The department I worked at was exclusively for autonomous workers like lawyers, engineers, architects, realtors, etc. It was just me and my boss, even though we should be 4 people. I was responsible for making those workers a series of documents related to properties they were working on for whatever reason. Some were sent, some had to be picked up personally. If you didn't register your information beforehand, you had to go in person to ask for anything you needed and then wait or come back later depending on what it was. Enter crappy, impatient lawyer. At the moment she came in, my boss had left for lunch, so I was alone. She needed information on the debts of a property and the personal information of the owner. When she came in, I was finishing a document and there were 2 people before her. She didn't care and just threw her stuff at the counter and started talking. Not even good morning, excuse me, or anything. I politely interrupted her, told her I was just finishing something and that she had to wait until I got to the 2 people before her, and told her that she could either wait or come back in about 20 minutes. She tried to argue and said that what she needed was really fast and asked if I couldn't just do it for her because she was in a hurry in a rude, demanding tone. I explained it all over again using different words. She huffed and left. About 30 minutes later, my boss came back. There was no one at the counter, so I was taking the email requests. He asked me how everything was, and as we talked, a court clerk came in with some contracts for us, which we had to check, sign, generate the tributes/taxes of the transaction, and return to the court clerk until 2 p.m. because they had to pay the taxes on the bank that closed at 4 p.m. Usually they came in around 10 a.m. so we could have time, but that day they couldn't make it until 1 p.m. As my boss was checking the documents, I continued on the email and the lawyer from before came back. I noticed someone stopped on the counter but didn't look at who it was, just continued typing as I was finishing answering an email and said, "Good afternoon, I was going to say, I will be with you in a minute, and she interrupted me with the same tone from before, just louder, and asked, "Can you take me now?" I looked at her, smiled politely as if she wasn't effing rude, and said, "In a minute." If I was by myself, I would have just dropped the email and see what she wanted just to get rid of her and of pressure, but my boss didn't like me being a pushover and always lectured me when I was. So thank God he was there. It took me about 20 seconds to finish, and when I opened my mouth to speak to her, she just asked why he couldn't take her request. I told her I was already finished and he was busy with something he had to turn in an hour. She rolled her eyes and started telling what she wanted. The kind of document she asked for was sent via email and would take me about 15 minutes. I tried to explain that she could ask for those things via email instead of going in person. Me. Instead of coming here to request those, you can just... And she interrupts me. "Can you just get it done already?" I was getting impatient and looked at my boss, who had stopped what he was doing to pay attention. Me. "Okay, so I just need an email to send those." "What do you mean? You made me wait an hour to say you won't give the documents to me printed?" "We aren't allowed to print those here because it's the most important document and usually just for speculations. I'll send them to you." And she interrupts me again, this time looking at her phone. "Well, I see here the legal time for sending documents via email is 3 hours, so I'll be waiting." And just left. It was going to take me 15 minutes, maybe less, but since she was rude AF, I waited 3 whole hours. When I sent the documents, it wasn't even useful for the day anymore because everything was closing at 4 p.m. But you get what you ask for. And our second story. You don't want me to work from home? Fine, no problem. I won't. This happened quite a few years ago. I managed, together with one colleague, a lot of work. When I started working there, it was easy to reach. One train, 45 minutes. Then the company moved addresses. My daily trajectory doubled in time, and having a family, I applied to work from home 1 day per week. My boss didn't want to hear about it. Even worse, shortly afterwards, he announced that he would start to work from home by himself. He had a company car, but the traffic was oh so long every day, less than the time I spent, but, well, he's a lazy guy. He was the type that would tell everyone orally and by email, and sometimes in a very menacing tone, to respect the clock and not come late or leave early. He, on the other hand, was always the last to come in, late of course, and the first to leave, early of course. Imagine just how we all felt about this. Listen to what I say, but don't look at what I do. Leadership by example, you know what I mean? In terms of salary, he was also a dishonest person. We were all underpaid by 10 to 15% at least, but we loved our jobs, and I kept it because I needed a bit of money in the short term. I already knew for quite some time that at that point, I would need to have surgery performed twice, and that would mean that I could not work twice for 3 to 4 weeks. So the moment comes when the doctor tells me that the surgery can't be avoided anymore. It was nothing life-threatening, and it's been performed successfully. I tell the boss about the upcoming surgery, and his first reaction is, "Oh my God, you'll be gone for 3 to 4 weeks in a few weeks from now? Oh my God, you'll be gone for 3 to 4 weeks in a few weeks from now? And that repeats itself a second time in 2 months? We'll need to stay in touch in case we have questions about your work." My answer? No, you don't. A few years ago, you told me I can't work from home. You wouldn't allow it. And one of the things a manager really has to be is that they're consistent between what they say and what they do. Don't turn your coat the way the wind blows. On top of that, I'm on sick leave, and contacting people while they're on sick leave is out of order. What I thought but did not say was that I was also underpaid and that I was taking paid sick leave just to put the cherry on the cake I was serving him. He wasn't happy. I forced him to respect his own rules. He tried to manipulate me into contacting me anyway during sick leave, but relayed the situation to headquarters, who followed me all along. He really wasn't well liked there. 2 months later, next surgery, same story. And by then, he was really pissed because he'd understood that, first, I forced him to respect his own rules, and second, that the company would pick up the full salary tab for 2 months without any work done from me. On top of it all, the hospital insurance from employer ensured that I could have this surgery performed without spending anything noteworthy. See, that is compensation for the time I was underpaid. Shortly after second surgery, I quit for a better paying job, plus 30%, which is above my expectations. Edit. 1. In this country, the first 30 days of sick leave are paid by the employer. After these 30 days, Social Security picks up the tab. If there's at least 30 days of work between the first 30-day sick leave and another set of 30-day sick leave, then these next 30-day sick leave are also paid by the employer. 2. I'm not going to state my profession, partly because I don't want to be recognized, partly because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this story regardless of their profession. All I'm saying is that I work in a high-profile administrative function that allows people perfectly well to work from home. And our last story. Good luck finding your car in another country. I've lived in an apartment complex in Lisbon, Portugal. The where is important for the last 4 years. If anyone's from here, you know parking is hell. Fortunately, my building has a private garage. However, as is often the case, some parking places are more difficult to park in than others. Last year, I was offered a job abroad and took it. Thought I'd be nice, parked my car at my parents' where they have plenty of space, and left a notice in the building elevator that went along the lines of, "I'm the owner of 3B and will be away for at least 6 months. Feel free to use my parking spot." Ended up being away for longer, almost a year. Came back to see my parking spot occupied, which was okay since I offered for it to be used. Put another notice in the elevator, this time to say I was back and would use the parking spot again. Gave it 2 days and picked my car up from my parents. Went into my garage and my space was still being used. Had to park somewhere on the street and decided to give it another day. The day after, it was occupied again by the same car. Asked a couple neighbors and figured out it belonged to a lady living 2 stories above me. Went up to talk to her and she immediately got defensive and said that her parking spot is very difficult for her to park in, and since I was away for longer than I'd announced, I lost the space. Which is stupid logic, as the spots are bought with the apartment. It literally belongs to me. She also told me I couldn't use her parking space instead, as she was using it for storage. Went to the building admin, who said he'd talk to her. He did, and came back shaking his head. Nothing. I sent a registered letter telling her to stop using my space and giving her 48 hours to take the car elsewhere. The next day, I saw the unopened letter in the garbage bin beside the mailboxes. I ended up scouting my garage, waiting for her to leave, and would immediately park my car, hoping she'd take the hint. She didn't, and we ended up doing this dance for a few weeks. Up to the day I came back to see my entire driver's side keyed. That was the final straw. I talked to a friend who owns a towing company. We chose a Saturday morning. The last few weeks she hadn't left home on Saturdays. I knew as I'd been watching her car like a hawk, so I thought we'd have big chances of her not noticing anything until everything was done, and towed her car. The plan initially was to leave the car just down the road, but that felt too close and too easy. Then I thought about leaving it in a city about 15 minutes away, but it still didn't feel quite right. My friend jokingly said, "Let's leave it in Madrid." FYI, Madrid is in Spain, about 600 kilometers, 375 miles away. I knew he was joking, but Madrid did feel right. I asked if he had enough time. He did. So off we went. Once we got to Madrid, we went out for lunch, strolled around the city, and waited until it got dark and the streets empty. In the meantime, we'd already decided on where to leave the car, a handicapped parking spot close to a police station. And so we did. Then we drove back home. It's been 2 weeks, and I haven't seen her car since. One of these days, I might leave a letter in her mailbox telling her to contact Madrid police, but in the meantime, I'll enjoy being able to use my parking whenever I want to. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.